58-year-old Jian Rangkharasamee lies in a pool of his own blood, while 4 lions chew through his flesh to the bone. Tourists film in horror as the pack tears him apart for 15 agonizing minutes. It's September 10th, 2025, at Safari World Bangkok, and the most brutal zoo attack in Thailand's history is unfolding in front of hundreds of witnesses who thought they were watching a fun family day out. But here's what nobody wants you to know. This wasn't an accident. This was 30 years of experience destroyed by one fatal decision that violated every safety rule in the book. In 18 minutes, you'll discover why a veteran keeper with 3 decades of experience walked directly into the jaws of death. The safety violations that turned a routine day into a bloodbath. The horrifying footage that tourists will never be able to forget. But first, we need to understand how love for dangerous animals became a death sentence in the heart of Bangkok. Jian Rangkharasamee wasn't some rookie making beginner mistakes. At 58, he was a seasoned professional who had spent 30 years working with the world's most dangerous predators. 20 years specifically with lions and tigers. A man who understood these animals better than most people understand their own pets. His wife would later say something that haunts everyone who knew him. He deeply loved his job and was the breadwinner of the family. He had cared for lions and tigers for many years, always exercised caution, and had never been attacked by any animal before. Never attacked. Not once in 3 decades of working with creatures that could kill him without effort. But she did not know about the decision he was about to make that would destroy everything in 15 minutes of unimaginable horror. Jian had joined Safari World in 2019, bringing his decades of experience to Thailand's most famous wildlife park. To his colleagues, he was the steady veteran who never took shortcuts, never got complacent, never forgot that the beautiful animals he cared for were still apex predators programmed by evolution to kill. He was supposed to be the one who would never make a fatal mistake, the one whose experience would keep him alive when younger, less cautious keepers might stumble, the one who understood that in the world of big cats, a single moment of carelessness could mean death. But on September 10th, 2025, 30 years of perfect safety record would be destroyed by one decision that no amount of experience could justify. Safari World Bangkok had operated for over 40 years without a fatal attack. 40 years of tourists driving through enclosures filled with lions, tigers, and other predators. 40 years of careful protocols that kept humans and animals safely separated. 40 years of proof that dangerous wildlife tourism could work if everyone followed the rules. The lions in the drive-through section weren't circus performers or tame pets. These were full-grown African predators weighing up to 400 pounds each, with jaws that could crush bones and claws that could shred flesh. Beautiful, magnificent, and absolutely lethal when their hunting instincts were triggered. The alpha male they called Trump was 10 years old in his prime, the kind of lion that would rule a pride in the wild through pure dominance and violence. He had lived his entire adult life in captivity, fed regular meals, provided with veterinary care, but still fundamentally a creature designed to hunt and kill. Around him, 3 to 4 other lions formed a loose coalition, not a natural pride, but a collection of predators thrown together by human decisions, their social dynamics artificial and potentially unstable. When one attacked, pack instincts would drive the others to join in, turning a single predator encounter into a feeding frenzy. But the most dangerous thing about these lions wasn't their physical power. It was their familiarity with humans. Years of seeing vehicles drive through their enclosure, of being fed by keepers, of having their territory invaded daily by tourists, had made them less afraid of people than wild lions would be. They had learned that humans meant food, meant routine, meant safety. But they had never learned to distinguish between the humans who fed them and the humans who might become food themselves. September 10th, 2025, dawned hot and humid in Bangkok. Another busy day at Safari World with hundreds of tourists already arriving for the drive-through safari experience that had made the park famous across Southeast Asia. Families with children, couples on vacation, tour groups eager to see Africa's most dangerous predators up close from the safety of their vehicles. Jian Rangkharasamee began his morning routine as he had thousands of times before. Check on the animals, ensure their enclosures were secure, prepare for another day of feeding and maintenance work in one of the world's most dangerous workplaces. The drive-through lion section was busy with tourist vehicles slowly making their way through the enclosure. Cameras clicking, children pressing faces against windows to get better looks at the magnificent predators lounging in the Thai sun. Everything seemed normal, routine, safe. But sometime around 11:12 a.m., Jian noticed something that would trigger the decision that killed him. Trash on the ground in the lion's enclosure. Litter that had been thrown or dropped by tourists. Debris that needed to be cleaned up before it became a hazard for the animals. In any other job, cleaning up trash would be routine maintenance. In a lion enclosure, it was a death sentence waiting to happen. The safety protocols were absolute and clear. No human being exits their vehicle in the predator enclosures under any circumstances. The lions were behind fences, but those fences had gaps. The lions were accustomed to humans, but that familiarity could turn deadly in seconds. The protocols existed because people who violated them died. But Jian had 30 years of experience. He knew these lions. He had fed them, cared for them, worked around them for years without incident. Maybe he thought he could step out quickly, grab the trash, and get back in his vehicle before anything went wrong. Maybe he forgot that lions can cover 30 feet in 2 seconds. Maybe he never saw Trump watching him with the focused attention of a predator that had just identified prey. What happened next was captured on phone cameras by horrified tourists who thought they were filming a routine interaction between keeper and lions. Instead, they documented 15 minutes of horror that would haunt them forever. Jian stepped out of his work vehicle to clear the trash from the enclosure floor. For a few seconds, everything seemed fine. The lions appeared calm, familiar with human presence, uninterested in the keeper going about his routine work. Then Trump began moving, not running, not charging, just walking with the casual confidence of an apex predator that had spotted an opportunity. 30 feet of distance that would disappear in heartbeats once the massive lion decided to close the gap. Dr. Thawachai Kanchanaran, watching from a tourist vehicle, initially thought the lions were playing with the zookeeper. The attack began so casually, so without drama, that witnesses couldn't immediately process what they were seeing. But this wasn't play. This was predation. Trump approached from behind, the way lions hunt in the wild, silently, patiently, striking when prey is distracted and vulnerable. Jian, focused on cleaning up the litter, never saw death approaching until 400 pounds of muscle and fang knocked him to the ground. The lion's jaws clamped down on Jian's body with hydraulic force. His claws, designed to hold struggling zebras and wildebeest, found purchase on human flesh with devastating efficiency. The keeper who had spent 30 years caring for these animals became prey in the space of a single heartbeat. But Trump wasn't alone. Lions are pack hunters, and when one attacks, others join in. 3 to 4 additional lions converged on Jian's fallen body, their predatory instincts triggered by the sight and scent of blood. What followed was 15 minutes of systematic dismemberment that no human being should ever have to witness. Lions don't kill quickly like some predators. They are scavengers as much as hunters, and when they find prey that isn't immediately dead, they begin feeding whether or not the victim is still alive. What happened to Jian Rangkharasamee was the nightmare scenario that every zoo safety protocol is designed to prevent. The pack surrounded him, each lion claiming a portion of his body. They chewed through his flesh to the bone, their powerful jaws designed to crack open the marrow of elephant bones, making short work of human tissue. His screams echoed across the enclosure as hundreds of tourists watched in paralyzed horror. Fellow zookeepers, trapped outside the enclosure by safety barriers that now prevented rescue, tried desperately to drive the lions away. They honked car horns until the sound became a constant wail. They shouted commands that the frenzied predators ignored completely. They banged on metal barriers with anything they could find. But nothing worked. The lions had tasted blood, and 30 million years of evolution had taken control. They were no longer the familiar animals that Jian had fed and cared for. They were apex predators following instincts that no amount of human training could override. For 15 minutes, the most experienced animal keeper in Thailand, was torn apart by creatures he had dedicated his life to protecting. His flesh was stripped away layer by layer. His bones were broken by jaws that could crush steel. His blood pooled on the ground, while tourists filmed with shaking hands, unable to look away from the horror unfolding before them. When zoo staff finally managed to drive the lions away with firearms, there was barely enough left of Jian Rangkharasamee to constitute a body. The autopsy would reveal multiple deep lacerations, a broken neck, ruptured arteries, and damage so extensive that identification was only possible through personal effects. 30 years of experience, destroyed in 15 minutes of prehistoric savagery. The investigation that followed revealed the full scope of the tragedy. Jian's death wasn't just the result of a single bad decision. It was the culmination of systematic safety failures that had been building for years. Safari World's permit had expired in October 2024 and was still awaiting renewal. Fences were damaged, warning signs were inadequate, CCTV camera coverage was insufficient. The very infrastructure designed to keep humans and predators safely separated had been allowed to deteriorate. But the most damning revelation was that this tragedy was entirely preventable. Every safety expert who examined the case reached the same conclusion. No human being should ever exit a vehicle in a predator enclosure, regardless of their experience or the apparent docility of the animals. The lions involved in the attack were confined to cages pending investigation. Safari World shut down its large cat section indefinitely. Police launched a comprehensive investigation into safety violations that had created conditions for a fatal attack. But for Jian Rangkharasamee's family, these measures came too late. The man who had been their breadwinner, their patriarch, their source of strength was gone, destroyed by the animals he had loved more than his own safety. The most disturbing aspect of Jian's death was that it was documented from multiple angles by tourists who initially thought they were witnessing routine animal care. Phone videos captured every moment of the attack, creating a permanent record of how quickly experience and caution can be overwhelmed by predatory instinct. The footage shows the casual way Trump approached, the sudden explosion of violence when the attack began, the helpless desperation of other zoo staff trying to intervene. But most haunting of all, it shows how long the attack lasted. 15 minutes of systematic predation that seemed to go on forever. Wildlife experts who viewed the footage noted that the lions weren't acting aggressively or unusually. They were simply following their nature as apex predators when presented with vulnerable prey. The tragedy was not that they attacked. The tragedy was that human safety failures had made such an attack possible. Jian Rangkharasamee died because 30 years of experience made him confident enough to take a risk that killed him. The veteran keeper who had never been attacked by any animal in 3 decades of dangerous work made one decision that destroyed everything in 15 minutes of unimaginable horror. His death revealed the fundamental truth about working with apex predators. No amount of experience, no depth of relationship, no years of successful interaction can guarantee safety when dealing with creatures designed by evolution to kill. One moment of carelessness, one violation of safety protocols, one assumption too many can transform protectors into prey in the space of a heartbeat. The lions that killed him weren't evil or malicious. They were simply being what millions of years of evolution had created. Perfect predators that kill when opportunity presents itself. Jian's death wasn't their fault. It was the inevitable result of human decisions that put a vulnerable person within reach of creatures that never forget what they are. On September 10, 2025, Jian Rangkharasamee stepped out of his vehicle for the last time. He went out as Thailand's most experienced big cat keeper, confident in his ability to handle any situation. He stayed as food for predators that had never stopped being wild, no matter how long they had lived in captivity. His death serves as a permanent reminder that apex predators don't retire, don't become safe, don't lose their ability to kill. They wait with the patience of geological time for the moment when human error creates opportunity for ancient instincts to take control. The tourists who filmed his death will carry those images forever. The lions who killed him remember nothing of his years of care and dedication. And somewhere in Bangkok, Other keepers continue their dangerous work, knowing that experience is no guarantee of survival when you share space with creatures that kill for food. Jian loved his job, loved his animals, loved his life. But love isn't enough when it comes to apex predators that see the world through eyes that recognize only two categories: predator and prey. On September 10, 2025, 30 years of being a predator ended when Jian Rangkharasamee became prey for creatures that had been waiting their entire lives for exactly that moment. The lions are still there, behind stronger fences now, watched by better cameras managed with stricter protocols. But they remember the taste of human flesh, and they know that somewhere beyond the barriers, potential prey continues to walk on two legs, confident in their safety, unaware of how quickly that safety can disappear when predators decide it's time to hunt.